It's 2022, and you're standing in a grocery store, staring at a carton of eggs that costs twice what it did a year ago. Your paycheck hasn't changed, but somehow everything feels more expensive. You're not imagining it. While most Americans watch their purchasing power evaporate during the recent inflation surge, something remarkable happened at the top. The world's 5 richest people saw their wealth double. Not grow steadily, double. They're making $14 million an hour while you're counting pennies at the checkout. How is this possible? Today, we're exposing the hidden mechanism that turns inflation, an economic force that crushes the middle class, into a wealth-generating machine for the ultra-rich. Let me tell you about 2 neighbors, Sarah and Michael. They live on the same street in suburban America. Sarah works as a marketing manager, earning $75,000 a year. Michael is a tech entrepreneur worth $30 million. When inflation hit 9% in 2022, the highest level in 4 decades, both of them faced the same rising prices. Beef jumped 15% in the past year. Home insurance, healthcare, utilities, everything climbing. But here's where their stories diverge dramatically. Sarah's salary increased by maybe 4% that year. Meanwhile, her rent jumped 10%, groceries cost 40% more over 5 years, and her savings account was bleeding value every single day. She was effectively getting poorer by the month. Michael? He got significantly richer, and not because he worked harder or had some genius business breakthrough. The system was literally designed to transfer wealth from people like Sarah to people like Michael during inflationary periods. Let me show you exactly how this happens. Number 1, the asset advantage. Here's the first secret. The wealthy own assets. The middle class owns debt and cash. As of 2024, the top 10% of Americans own 93% of all stock wealth. When inflation rises, something counterintuitive happens. Asset prices often explode. Stock markets reached record highs even as inflation raged. Property values soared. Real estate in high-demand areas appreciated faster than the inflation rate itself. Michael's $30 million wasn't sitting in a checking account, losing 9% of its value. It was invested in stocks, real estate, and commodities, assets that historically outperformed during inflation. His real estate portfolio? Properties appreciate with inflation, and he can raise rents to match rising prices. His stock holdings? Companies with pricing power passed increased costs to consumers, while his shares climbed in value. Meanwhile, Sarah's meager savings, what little she had, lost purchasing power every single day. That $10,000 emergency fund? It could buy 9% less at the end of 2022 than it could at the beginning. Number 2, the debt deflation effect. Here's where it gets even more ingenious. When inflation rises, the real value of debt falls. Michael bought his rental properties with $15 million in mortgages at fixed interest rates. As inflation soared, he's paying back those loans with money that's worth less and less. His monthly mortgage payment stays exactly the same, let's say $50,000, but inflation means he's effectively paying with cheaper dollars each month. It's like his debt is evaporating while his property values climb. Research shows this is how entrepreneurs, who make up a large fraction of the ultra-wealthy, benefit massively from unexpected inflation. They discharge their debts with depreciated money, while their assets ballooned in value. Sarah, on the other hand, she's a net saver with no investment property. She can't use leverage. She can't benefit from debt deflation. She just watches prices rise faster than her income. Number 3, the portfolio composition gap. By 2025, this wealth gap had grown so extreme that we now have a wealth gap among the rich themselves. The world's super wealthy, those with at least $30 million, now hold 32% of all ultra-rich wealth, up dramatically from previous years. Here's why. Wealthy portfolios are composed differently. North American wealthy investors hold 59% of their portfolios in securities, stocks, bonds, investments that typically rise with or ahead of inflation. They own real assets, real estate investment trusts, infrastructure investments, commodities, energy stocks, all the sectors that thrive when prices rise. The typical American, their portfolio is dominated by their home, if they own one, and whatever's in their 401k. They hold cash for emergencies. They don't have diversified real asset portfolios. They can't access the inflation hedging investments that the wealthy use as a matter of course. But here's what really amplifies this effect. The wealthy have been paying less and less tax while gaining more and more wealth. According to research, average tax rates on the richest people have fallen from 58% in 1980 to just 42% today. Elon Musk paid a true tax rate of around 3% between 2014 and 2018. Half of the world's billionaires live in countries with no inheritance tax, meaning $5 trillion in wealth will pass to the next generation untouched. During the pandemic recovery, governments pumped trillions into economies. This was meant to help struggling families. But here's what happened. Those trillions also drove up the value of assets already held by the super rich. As researchers found, at least 1.7 billion workers globally saw inflation rise faster than their wages in 2022. But billionaires? They gained hugely. In 2024, the top 10% of American households accounted for a record 50% of all consumer spending. Not because everyone else disappeared, but because wealth concentration has reached levels not seen since the 1920s. The top 1% now holds 31% of total household wealth, up from about 30.5% just before the pandemic. And here's the kicker. Prices don't rise uniformly. Research from the Bureau of Labor Statistics found that prices have grown faster for the types of goods purchased by lower-income households than for items bought by higher-income people. So not only is inflation hitting the poor harder, it's literally costing them more per unit of inflation than it costs the wealthy. So back to Sarah and Michael on that same suburban street. After 2 years of high inflation, Sarah's real income, adjusted for inflation, has declined. Her wealth-to-income ratio has shrunk. She's further from home ownership than ever, priced out by property values that rose 40% in 5 years. Michael's net worth increased by millions. His rental income grew, his stock portfolio hit new highs, his mortgage debt became cheaper in real terms. He paid minimal taxes on this wealth appreciation. And the gap between Sarah and Michael, which was already a chasm, widened into an abyss. This isn't about hard work or talent or who deserves what. It's about structural advantages that turned economic disruption into a wealth transfer mechanism. While 90% of Americans stress about grocery costs, the ultra-wealthy account for 20% of luxury goods spending, $290 billion, equal to 1% of U.S. GDP. So the next time you see a headline about inflation cooling or heating up, understand what's really happening. Inflation isn't just rising prices. It's a mechanism that systematically enriches those who own assets while impoverishing those who rely on wages and savings. The question isn't whether inflation makes the rich richer. The data proves it does. The question is, what are we going to do about it? If this video opened your eyes, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me your experience with inflation, and share this with someone who needs to understand how the game is really played, because the first step to changing the system is understanding it.